touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Rammer, jammer, yellow hammer, come see how we rock this. Alabama fans the best, there's no way you can top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Welcome into a new episode of The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine. Thank you guys so much for joining me on our YouTube page today. As always, if you are not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button below so you can stay updated on all of our content here at TouchdownAlabama.com. You guys can check out The Process every Tuesday and Thursday evening right here on our YouTube page, as I will always be here to break down the latest in Tide football recruiting news. And on this episode of The Process, as the calendar turns to November, we are officially a month and a couple of weeks away from National Signing Day during the early signing period. Of course, we have two National Signing Days during each recruiting cycle. We have the traditional signing period, which will be in February, but we also have the early signing period, which will be in December. On this episode here, I want to talk about a couple of guys who could commit before the early signing period, basically break down who could commit to the Tide next right here on our YouTube page today. But before I dive deeper into that, I do have some recruiting updates to hit you guys with. We are going to roll right into those recruiting updates to get this episode started here today. So with that being said, let's get the process started. Let's get these recruiting updates started with the Tide offering a couple of 2022 prospects, including Amari Kelly out of here at Trussville High School in Trussville, Alabama. When you look at Kelly, this is his 20th offer from a D1 program. I actually got a chance to interview Kelly on Friday night before the Tide offered them. I just wanted to talk with them about the possibility of being on the Tide's radar at some point in the future. I did not realize the future would be that quickly, as the Tide actually offered them the next day before I could even write an article on Kelly, but I did get a chance to interview him. My interview with Kelly is listed over at TouchdownAlabama.com, as he broke down some of the things that he has been working on when it comes to his game, especially at the wide receiver position, which has resulted in him being very productive for the Huskies during his junior season, as he has racked up multiple offers from schools all over the country. So be sure to check out that article with Kelly over at TouchdownAlabama.com, as the Crimson Tide continues to recruit here at Trussville very hard. They have recruited that school hard over the last couple of recruiting cycles. The Tide also offered another in-state 2022 athlete in Shemar James out of Mobile, Alabama, as the Crimson Tide's coaching staff continues to try to shape out its recruiting board for the 2022 recruiting class. When you look at the 2022 recruiting class and look at some of the prospects in this class, some of them are making some big moves in their recruitment, even though the COVID-19 and the global pandemic has impacted college football recruiting over the last couple of months. We see a lot of 2022 prospects continuing to move through their recruitment. I think that is pretty interesting, considering the fact that when you take visits during your junior season, in my opinion, I think these sometimes can be the most important visits for a prospect, because you get a chance to take as many visits as possible, unofficial visits, of course, during your junior season, especially for guys who want to make a decision before their senior year begins. So a lot of 2022 prospects are continuing to work through their recruitment, including Malachi Starks, a five-star running back out of Georgia, who recently released a top 3 and included the Tide. So Starks and a couple of other guys here in this 2022 recruiting class are continuing to work through their recruitment despite the global pandemic impacting college football visits. But bouncing back to the 2021 recruiting class, as a couple of the Tide commits recently received their jersey for the Under Armour All-America game, which will take place in Orlando, Florida in the month of January. When you look at guys like 4-star quarterback Jalen Barrow and 4-star offensive lineman Terrence Ferguson, both of those Tide commits recently received their jersey to participate in that particular event, as it is still on. It is still set to happen despite COVID-19. So be sure to check out some of the Tide commits as they take the field in the Under Armour All-America game this season for the 2020 football season. Another update I wanted to provide you guys with before I dive into the next segment is the fact that I got a chance and opportunity to catch up with some of the Tide's defensive commits after watching the Tide dominate Mississippi State on the defensive side of football. I just wanted to talk with those guys about some of the improvements the Tide's defense has made as a whole. So be sure to check out that article over at touchdownalabama.com as well. But now I am going to dive into a couple of guys who could commit to the Tide before the National Signing Day during the early signing period. To start this discussion over who could commit to the Tide next, I first want to bring up the fact that Tino Sunseri, a member of the Tide's coaching staff, released a TikTok tweet, which is what he usually does when the Tide has secured a commitment. He released one late last week, and many thought it was for the 5-star defensive back Sage Ryan, who committed to LSU over the weekend. But with him committing to LSU, I don't think Sunseri's tweet was about Ryan, because Sunseri has never sent out a tweet unless the Tide has secured a commitment. And with Sunseri sending out that tweet, it actually brings me to the next guy who could possibly commit to the Tide next. And that guy is Xavier Sorey, who Sal Sunseri is very heavily involved with here in this 2021 recruiting cycle. Sorey released on Twitter a couple of weeks ago that he wants to announce a commitment soon, and this is a kid who wants to enroll early, so I definitely think the decision for him could be coming before the National Signing Day during the early signing period. When you look at Sorey, this is a guy who the Tide's coaching staff has recruited very hard throughout this 2021 recruiting cycle. They have told him that they plan to play him all over the field. I think he can be a great inside linebacker. He has a bit of a lengthier frame when it comes to inside backers as he does stand at 6'3", but I think he has a nice frame as he is put together pretty nicely. This is a kid who played all over the field for Graceville High School before transferring to IMG Academy, where he plays more of an inside linebacker role. And when you play for the Ascenders at IMG Academy, you get an opportunity to go up against some of the top players at the high school football level in the nation. So Xavier Sorey has had that opportunity during his senior season, and I think this would be a great pickup for the Tide as they are listed in his top 5 at the moment. I have said this time and time again over the last couple of weeks, almost a month now. I feel that they are the clear-cut favorite for Xavier Sorey heading into a possible decision. So he does top my list of guys who could commit to the Tide next at this very moment. The next guy I will look at is Shemar Turner, the 4-star defensive end out of Texas, out of DeSoto High School, a very impressive defensive lineman, a guy who is deadly and explosive and is a true weapon in space, a guy who can play very well in space for a defensive lineman, a guy who's quick off the snap. I am very impressed with Shemar Turner, the 4-star defensive end out of Texas, as the Tide looks to complete this 2021 recruiting class with a couple of elite defensive linemen, and Shemar Turner is among the group who they are currently targeting pretty hard, along with the likes of Thomas Adelie, along with JT Tuamawala. So Shemar Turner is right along with Sorey, two guys who I will look at who could commit to the Tide next before the National Signing Day during the early signing period. Of course, there are several other guys to look at, guys who could be calling Alabama's name on National Signing Day in a couple of weeks here in the month of December, as Thomas Adelie is a guy who will announce his commitment on National Signing Day. He is down to the Tide, Florida, and Texas A&M. You have Terrion Arnold, who looks to be still on the board for the Crimson Tide. He is going to cut his top school list down to a top 5 in December. He could move his commitment day up to the National Signing Day during the early signing period as well, because he did say when he releases his top 5 on December 1st, a commitment will come soon after. So this is a kid who could commit on National Signing Day as well. So that is something to look at. Of course, him and Sorey want to play together at the next level, and the Tide still looks to be right there as one of the teams who could take the commitment from both of those guys. So at this moment, I think Shemar Turner along with Xavier Sorey are the guys to pay attention to when it comes to guys who could commit to the Tide before National Signing Day. Of course, you have to look at other guys on National Signing Day, such as Thomas Shea Adelie, one of the Tide's top targets when it comes to that defensive line group. Also have to keep your eyes on a couple of guys like Brian Thomas Jr., the 4-star wide receiver who the Tide is also recruiting. And I know a lot of people do not talk about these couple of guys here, but the Tide still looks to be involved in their recruitment, especially Donovan Edwards, the 4-star running back, as the Tide does not have a running back in this 2021 recruiting class at the moment. They did sign 3 in the 2020 recruiting class, and you have to look at the fact that Keelan Robinson will most likely not lose a year of eligibility with them opting out of this particular season for the Tide, so he will come back as a sophomore. So that is something to pay attention to as well. So the Tide will have 4 sophomore running backs, so they do not need a running back in this 2021 recruiting class. But if Donovan Edwards wanted to commit to the Tide, I think that will be something that is pretty interesting to look at. So those are the 2 guys, as I said earlier, Xavier Sorey, Shemar Turner are the guys I'll pay attention to before National Signing Day, as the Tide's coaching staff looks to close out this 2021 recruiting class very strong. They still look to be in a great position to do that. That will do it for this episode of The Process. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below before you leave. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. As always, get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Read our in-depth scouting reports of each Tide commit in each recruiting class. Draft projections provided by the staff here at touchdownalabama.com as well. Then head to your Apple App Store or your Google Play Store to download the Touchdown Alabama app, so breaking news notifications can be sent to your mobile device. As always, thank you guys so much for joining me today. I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama magazine.
Process.